Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about characterization. You have your guided notes, or you should have your guided notes. Make sure you print those and bring them tomorrow with you so we can fill in any blanks that you may have. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. The most important thing is that you be able to get the information down on those notes. So I may just kind of elide over some things. If you need more understanding, feel free to go back and dwell on some of those things. So characterization is what we're talking about here. Here's like a nice dictionary definition of characterization. Really the one I want you to know is this one. The means by which a character is rendered or created. That's it. That's your definition for characterization. It's how an author creates a character, how an author tells the reader about a character, and how the author reveals information about a character. And so there's two types of characterization. There's two ways, general ways, that an author does this. One is through direct characterization. That's when the information about a character is just directly stated. He's a redhead. She's cruel. He's funny. Those are directly stated. Indirect characterization is more often used. Good writers would use this. It's when the character reveals something about themselves. It's when the narrator uses methods of characterization that have the reader feeling that the characters are revealing themselves, not the narrator. A good way to remember the 5 ways an author most commonly does this is with the acronym STEAL. So we're going to go through each of these, and they're on your notes. STEAL. The first is speech. We can learn a lot about a character through their speech. One way is through what they say. The words that a person speaks tells us a lot about them. Their vocabulary can tell us how well educated they might be. If they swear a lot, that tells me that they're kind of crass and crude. If they talk a lot, well, maybe they talk a lot because they're nervous. Maybe they talk a lot because they're just very outgoing. Sometimes what they don't say tells us a lot about them. People who are very quiet don't say much. Maybe they're just shy. Maybe they're aloof and they don't really feel like they need to associate with you. If they avoid talking about a crime, maybe that's because they're guilty. And also how they say it, their accent, their voice tone, the speed at which they talk, all of these things about how a person speaks can tell us about that character. Somebody with a very posh accent, with a good vocabulary, we might assume that they're well-educated and wealthy. Well, that's an assumption, but very oftentimes if an author is going to use that kind of indirect characterization, that's probably what they want us to get at. Okay. So, speech. The second is thoughts. What a character thinks reveals a lot about somebody. That's true in real life. In plays, monologues are used very often. A character will talk to himself or will talk to the audience, and that's how we'll reveal what he's thinking. Conversations with yourself. So the way people think, that tells us how they think about the world. Okay. And their feelings, it kind of goes along with thoughts. Their feelings are a giveaway of what kind of person they are. Right? That exposes their character. Somebody who flies off the handle and is angry, that kind of emotion will tell us something about them. The E stands for effect on others. The way a person interacts with other people tells us a great deal about their character. It shows us, are they empathetic? Do they care about, are they compassionate? How they treat others is huge. How do other people respond to this person emotionally? Do they respond to them with fear? Do they respond to them with love? Do they respond to them with repulsion? Are others attracted to them? Or do they move away from them emotionally? How other people respond to somebody tells us a lot about that person. And how the way others react to the character also says, are they popular? Are they loners? Are they leaders? Are they followers? Do they help others or do they ignore others? Okay, so the third is effect on others. The fourth is their actions. The way a person acts is driven by how they think, how they feel, and how they interact with others. Above all, it is the actions of people that are the true character emerges. How they act towards other. Are they selfish? Are they sympathetic? Do they help other people? What are their actions towards others? And what are their actions when they're under stress? Authors will use this quite a bit to show, if you're under stress, do you get grumpy? Do you get angry? Do you start to doubt? Do you start to doubt God? Those things can tell us a lot about a person's character. And finally, how a character looks. The appearance of a person can give much away about them, although appearances can be deceptive. Looks thus should not be the only way a character is portrayed. And I don't mean color of hair. We're talking more indirect ways. Facial expressions, other body language can tell us a lot about a person. If they're always standing with their arms crossed, if they always look like they're grouchy. And how they dress, right? How a person dresses can tell you a lot. Shall I go back to that one? The person's dress says something about what they can afford, about maybe their sense of fashion. A casually dressed person may be less worldly than a smart dude in a zoot suit. You guys don't know what a zoot suit is. All right, so types of characters. Okay, this should be easy. You've done this before. Protagonist, that's the main character in a work of fiction. Usually the hero. Bada boom. We'll just go through these a little hairy. And the antagonist, that's usually the character, that is the character or force pitted against the protagonist. I'll get you, my pretty. I've never seen that movie, so there you go. Okay, so this is really important. You really need to make sure you understand this. A round character. A round character is a believable character, a complex character. A round character develops, they grow, they may surprise the reader. Round characters, and the protagonist is always going to be a round character because they're going to be changing. They're going to be more interesting. You get to know a round character. Yeah, oh, there's Woody. A flat character as opposed to a round character. A flat character has just one dimension. They're very one-dimensional. You don't really get to know them well. They oftentimes just represent one thought or one idea, one or two features that distinguish him or her, Draco. All right. And a dynamic character. These are characters who learn. They're characters who change and they grow. They're dynamic. They change. That's what dynamic really means. Okay. There's Luke. A static character. This is one who doesn't change. Static characters don't change. They don't grow. They stay the same throughout the whole movie. And they can be a main character. I mean, Yoda's Yoda. He's never changing, right? Sherlock. Sherlock is pretty static. I mean, he is the protagonist. But he doesn't change, Sherlock. He's pretty much the same all the time. Emotionally, he's pretty static, actually. A stock character. This is a stereotype. This is a caricature. There's no depth to the stock character. They're there to reveal something. Okay, they're just, we know them, right? We know the dumb blonde, right? We know the evil stepmother. We know that if a movie has a stepmother in it, chances are that she's going to be a nasty piece of work, right? So there's stereotypes. A sidekick, you know what a sidekick is, the best friend, Buzz Lightyear. He looks like one of my former students. It's hilarious. Doppelganger. You know, you're not going to need to know this for this, but you should know what a doppelganger is. It's a double. It's somebody who looks like you, right? They say we all have a doppelganger. A doppelganger's job in a story is usually to trick people, also known as the evil twin. I just thought this is hilarious. I think that's Lily Cole. She's a model, I believe, a British model, but look how much she looks like the girl from Brave. It's almost like that. That's definitely her doppelganger. A foil. This is the character whose differences serve to define the protagonist. So an evil foil will show how virtuous the protagonist is, and a stupid character will show how smart the protagonist is. Right? So there's, what's his name from Toy Story 3? Can't think of his name. And then there's Randall. My son used to be obsessed with Randall when he was little. Okay? So some examples of direct and indirect characterization. Bill was short and fat. This is the direct characterization. And his bald spot was widening with every passing year. So he tells us straight up, he's fat, he's short, and he's balding. Okay? But an indirect way to say that same thing would be, Bill sighed as he looked at the offer of a gym membership. He really should join, but just thinking about it made beads of sweat collect on the top of his bald head. Okay? It doesn't really say he's short. It implies that he needs to work out. Right? But this is straight up, direct. This is, we gained some knowledge about Bill through that, but it's not directly stated. Here's an indirect characterization. As Jane walked past the box labeled Free Puppies, she furtively glanced around her and then gave the box a swift kick. Whoa, that tells us she's kind of mean. What kind of person does that? Right? Or the author could have just said, Jane's a cruel person. And one shows us that she is cruel. One just tells us she's cruel. One's much more interesting, isn't it? I didn't get enough sleep last night. Well, that's just direct. Didn't get enough sleep last night. I'm tired. Indirect. I yawned, trying to keep my eyes open in the meeting. I reached for my coffee cup and I was disappointed to realize it was empty. That's indirect characterization. We know from reading this, I'm tired. I was probably up too late last night. It kind of makes us wonder why. All right, so tomorrow we'll read some short stories and identify different types of characters and characterization. Don't forget to print these notes before you submit them to Google Classrooms. If you're not doing this on Google Classrooms because you can't get in yet, just print them and bring them to class. If you have put them on Google Classrooms and submitted them, also bring this to class, but then you don't have to turn in a hard copy. All right, we may change things up a little bit tomorrow. I may... over the weekend, I was going to have you read Everyday Use in your book, but we may do something a little bit differently with it tomorrow so that you don't have to read it. I have an idea up my sleeve, so be good, and maybe we'll get to it, and then you will be free to not do any homework over the weekend. All right, I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks. Bring your books tomorrow, though. Bring your books tomorrow, Brian Fiesel. Okay. Bye-bye.